My building is on fire. I need a fire escape. Hi modelers, it's Chris, the modeler at ABR Modelworks. In this video, I'm going to show you our HO scale fire escape for the modular model building system, which of course can be used on any HO scale multi-story building. Plus, I'm going to give you a quick look at our new design system for the modular model building system that allows you to make a mock-up of the building you want to make. Now, before we start, can I ask for a huge favour? Would you subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon? By doing that, it will help grow the channel and help us produce more video content for you. Now, right now, as I'm producing this video, I'm also working on the new mock-up design system, which is a series of PDFs that allow you to print out what a panel will look like and add the doors and windows, etc. So this will be coming in the next couple of weeks, so watch out for the video on it. It will greatly assist you in making decisions about how big and what type of building to make. Now, when you do a mock-up like this, you'll get two things. First of all, you'll get a building that you'll be able to place on your layout and see what it's going to look like. And at the same time, by using the panel system and adding the little windows and brick panels, etc., you'll be able to see exactly what parts you need. So stay tuned. I'll be making a video on how to build a mock-up building. This is something that I quickly mocked up along with a smaller version for our fire escape diorama. So that's the two-story fire escape diorama. So let's get started with the build. As always, when I start a new project, I like to lay out all of the parts so I can see exactly what I've got and make sure I'm not missing anything. Now, this is a previous building that I mocked up showing the design concepts of the modular model building system. So I'm using this as a platform to produce a mock-up for the fire escape. We'll be offering both a full width panel fire escape and a half width panel fire escape. Here are the parts for both sizes laid out on the panels. Now, the first thing you do when you're working with the modular model building system is sand all of the panel pieces. Next, we pop the panels out of their holding frames. Next, we break away the tabs where the panels are joined together. On this building, we're only breaking away the tabs on one side as it's a corner building. Then break out the openings for the windows and the supports for the floors. I'm using some emery boards from SMS to sand where the tabs join together on the panels. Once you've sanded those openings, then test fit to make sure the panels fit together. On this building, I'm using single opening panels. However, I want the ground floor opening to be on the ground, so I'm cutting away the bottom of the base to accommodate a ground floor opening brick insert. Now I have sanded all of the brick inserts and test fitted them into the panels. I've done the same thing to the 3D printed doors and windows. Now I have the panels resting together and I have the brick inserts and windows in place. I'm going to seal all of the wooden parts with Deluxe Materials Sand and Seal. I have now mounted all of the 3D windows and doors ready for painting. I've painted the brick inserts and added the mortar, and I'm gluing together the panels, getting them ready for painting. And of course I'll be painting the fire escape 3D parts as well. Because the back of this building is open, I wanted to make a feature of the floors. So we didn't undercoat the floors with the sand and seal. Instead, I've used Vallejo Wash dipping formula, the sepia colour, and I've applied 3 coats to both sides. I'm going to be washing the floors afterwards with some dirt so that they have a aged appearance. But I'm starting with this colour to give a nice rich wood colour. Okay, as you can see, I've actually got the diorama building made and the fire escapes fitted, but I wasn't happy with the video footage that I shot on how to cut away and glue together the fire escape itself. So here we go, take 2. Now these are very fine, and to cut the sprues away without damaging the parts, you need to be quite careful. So I'm going to take you through the basics of how to do that. You'll need a good pair of sprue cutters. These are SMS dual edge nippers. I've got a fine emery board from SMS, and I've got a fine needle file, so it's good to have a good set of those. The glue I'm going to use is the Modlar's RC Canopy glue. It's a great glue. It works with plastic and painted surfaces, so it will not only glue the parts together but also glue them to the building itself, and dries crystal clear. So it's a great glue for a number of reasons. Okay, let's get cutting. Now the process is the same, doesn't matter whether you're putting together the half width or the full width. So I'm going to do the full width. Let's start with the platform itself. So when you look at the end, you'll see there's a little angle bracket that's attached by 3 sprues. What you want to do is very carefully cut away the 2. Just cutting those away, taking from one end to the other, you're taking the stress out of the plastic. The next part that you want to cut away is the top section, and again there's 3 of them, but start from one end, don't go to the middle one first. Slide the cutter up against the rail and just carefully nip it. Now when you've done that, these sprues at the back just very carefully can be cut through, and then that should come away nicely. Now all we have is the sprues along the leading edge to cut. And again, so you're not stressing the part, get the flat side of the cutter up against the bottom of the landing and just work your way along nice and slowly, cutting away each of the sprues. Have a look to see if there are any little pimples sticking up, and if there are, just go back and shave them off with the cutter. You will have a little bit of protrusion, but you shouldn't have much. Then very carefully pinching between each of the brackets, just gently in a motion moving away or across, just very carefully file back the sprues on the angle, where the sprues joined on the angle bracket, until you've got a flat surface. Do the same working all the way along, and then when you've done each of those brackets, do the same thing across the base. Now with the railing, we have a series of sprues on the ends, and we want to cut those away first. So we work our way around cutting those parts. So I cut the top piece, I cut that little piece away, and then I get in there and cut the next piece. By cutting away the excess, there's no chance of it jamming in and breaking the item itself. Now do the inside the same way and just nip away those. And of course I'm not doing these ones yet, I'm doing just the ones on the end. Now when you're cutting these, you may not get the sprue cutter absolutely flat up against it, so you can come back and just trim those off afterwards. Now what's great about these cutters is that they do get in nice and close, so there's minimal cleanup. There's a video, and there'll be a link to it in the description below, on a bunch of sprue cutters, and these ones came out on top as my choice from a value for money point of view. Now I've got my ends away. I'm going to now work around the item, and I'll stop for a moment on that end, because really what I should have done is I should have started on the inside. What we're trying to achieve here is work our way around the model in such a way that we're not lining up any stress points. If we were to start, especially with a pair of cutters that are wider than these in the middle, we would be pushing the sprue away from the base, and that would put pressure on the sprues either side. And then what can happen is a sprue can break away, but instead of just breaking through the sprue, it breaks away plastic where it's actually joining. So it's very important that on any 3D part that you look at, okay, where's the least amount of pressure going to be applied when I'm cutting, and work your way in a methodical method around the part. So now I'm going along the base, and because I've cut away that middle piece, as I go past that, I'm not going to be applying any pressure. And the lucky last one, and it should now just come away, and looks like we've got one that's still holding on that I missed just there. Okay, so we've got that away. Now as you can see, this is quite delicate and it will flex a lot, so you just need to be quite careful. But with a little bit of care, you're going to end up with a really great looking fire escape. Last thing is, or rather the next thing is, work your way along, feeling those little spots, cutting them away. Better to cut those little high spots off with the cutters than filing, because filing is more likely to break it. So you just need to be careful. But if you're gentle with the file, you won't have any problems. Okay, and like I did with the other one, just very carefully pinch it and file in a filing motion away, because really using the back side of the tooth on the file, and the plastic's quite soft, so it will file, and just file it down until you've got a nice flat surface on all of the edges where the sprues were. The inside part of the railing here is a little tricky because there's a step in it, and the step is there because the base sits into it. So that's a little fiddly to file, but again, just put your fingers in, hold it gently, pushing the file away, just knock back those sprue joints till you're happy that you've got a reasonably smooth surface. Now this is in a spot where it isn't going to be as noticeable, so you don't necessarily have to go absolutely flat, but you will have a nicer looking model if you do. Once you've started filing and you've removed the little sharp edge that can catch on the file, you'll be able to run the file backwards and forwards, but when you first start, just gently push those away. Start at the end that you've worked on and work your way along, making sure that you're careful to support it as you're filing them. As you can see, it doesn't take a lot, just a little bit of patience, a little bit of care. That just simply slides in like so. And if you've filed away the little ends and the pimples, then you won't have any problem with it fitting. But that's basically how it goes. So fairly simple. Now what I like to do is I'll grab a few of my weights just to sort of support it. Alright, so ready to get a little bit of glue. Okay, it doesn't take a lot, we just want a little bit of glue in a few spots, and then very carefully push that into place using a couple of blocks or a magnet. Just so gently squeeze it together so that it will sit and the glue will hold it in place. Okay, so there we go. So I'll give that a little while to dry up. Okay, so the easiest part to cut away is this ladder here, and really it's just a very simple process of starting at one end and working your way along. I like to start at the top, and again I'm not quite sure if you can see, but if you feel with your cutters, there's a little step. Slide up to the step and snip it away, and then work your way along one side. On this part there's plenty of room for a little bit of flex, and there we have sprue gone, ladder trimmed away. There may be a couple little spots that you might need just a little touch with the file or with the trimmer just to clean them up a little bit. That is now done. Now I've deliberately added an extra rung at the top, and I've done that because it depends on the building that you're working with. It may be that you need to have that. There's two things you can do here. You can either shorten the height, cutting out the return on the ladder level with the top of the step, or what we've done with these ones is we've actually removed the top of the step. If you prefer to have a shorter version and trim it that way, when you go to put it onto the building, you'll need to chop a little bit off the bottom. But in this instance, I wanted fairly high grade rails, so I've cut them there. We've made this ladder, and we actually have a couple of different lengths of them to be universal for different buildings, etc. This ladder is the ladder that goes in here, and again, it's a very easy ladder to chop away. All you need to do is go along the flat side, working along, just using the point of the cutters, snipping them off, and there we have it. That one's free. Now with this, I'm using the fine sandpaper from SMS. Just give it a little bit of a rub backwards and forwards very gently, hardly putting any pressure on it at all. And that will remove the bulk of the little parts that are sticking up. So that one's now finished. This one has got a nice fine rail on there. The most important part is finding where the little fine rail and the sprue meet, and then just very carefully nip that first. So it's important to cut that away, because if you don't, when you start cutting these, you will break the bottom of it. Once you've cut them, then like I did with the landing, just cut away the excess. With this one, the top part is fairly angled, so I would start and do either side of the top and then work your way down one side, cutting it away, get in nice and close. Doesn't matter if you don't get it super close, because you can always trim it off. Work your way down the other side, and then lastly, with the flat of the cutters, feel where the bottom of the ladder is, and then chop that away. And again, with either the emery board or with the file, give that a little bit of a file to clean it up. The half width drop down ladder, when you look at this, you'll see there's actually two ladders sitting on top of each other that in real life would slide apart to drop down to the pavement. Critical part about this one is that there are a bunch of little connectors at the bottom there. What I think is the best way to go is to remove the top sprues and then just trim them back just a little bit, so that they, again, not going to put any pressure anywhere. And then very carefully find the bottom of those two fine railings and cut those, and then just cut a little bit away. I'll go in there and cut the next railing, and then lastly I'll feel the bottom of the ladder and cut through the bottom section, and then come back that middle one. Now at this point, if it doesn't come away, it'll be because you probably haven't quite got in there and removed this bottom section. So just work backwards and forwards, trimming away a little bit of plastic until it releases. Now it's always easier to leave a little bit of that sprue. Not quite sure whether you can see that, but there's a little bit left on the end of the ladder, and I'll just give it a bit of a haircut with the cutters. There we go. And then if need be, you can get your file and just get in there and give it a little bit of a clean up as well. There we have our little drop down ladder. Okay, so now this ladder is pretty easy to cut away, much the same as this one. However, if you look carefully at the end here, we have a really long thick sprue coming up to this bridge section, which is where it's glued to the bottom to give you that sort of support, to give you the appearance of the ladder being up. So the very first thing we cut on this is this particular one. And so slide your sprue cutter up inside there, give it a cut, and then remove it at the base. And then that way it'll be out of your way when you're cutting the rest of it. And then just simply, like I've done with the other one, just work your way along, and there we go. All trimmed away. And then of course we just want to give it a little bit of sand on the bottom. Now you may notice one of the downsides of 3D printing is that sometimes you'll get an uneven straight edge and so between the supports. So the bottom of this ladder and the bottom of this ladder tend to have like a little bit of a wavy section between each of the steps. If you want to, you can leave it, or you can just very carefully, on a nice fine emery board like this one from SMS, just keep sanding it back until you get a flat edge. There's plenty of material there, it won't matter if you do it, and if you prefer the look of a nice straight edge, that's fine. So there you have it. We've cut away our parts. Our landing is now dry, and of course it's ready. It would go on the side of the building just like that. Relatively easy to do, looks great when it's finished. I hope you utilise some of the fire escape on your buildings. It can be used on scratch built buildings or any other building. So the distance between the floors are 50 millimeters. You can slide the ladder up and down a little bit, which gives you a little bit of latitude in terms of the distance between the floors. So you've got scope to use it on other types of buildings or scratch built buildings. So it's now time to assemble our fire escape dioramas. We've got all of the parts painted and the brickwork painted and weathered, and of course our fire escape components all made up, ready to be glued to the side of the building. So that's our next step. Okay, so first up we're going to just test fit all of the brick inserts, and because we've now added paint to the surfaces, the chances are if they're not going to quite fit, they're going to need a little bit of sanding to get them to fit. Okay, so I've now fitted all of the windows and doors. They're all glued in place. I'm not putting the glass in at this stage because I'm going to be spraying some weathering on it, and I want the glass on this building to be reasonably clean. We'll weather the glass separately before we glue it on. So now it's time to start to fit the fire escape, and the process is relatively simple. First of all, we will glue on the landings, and then we'll glue on the ladders, etc. So again, for this job I like to use the canopy glue, and it only takes a couple of drops, really just at each of the corner sections and the ends of the brackets. We'll just drop it in place, lining the bottoms of the brackets up with the concrete, and checking on the other side that the top of the landing lines up with the top of the concrete section. Sort of carefully nudge it into place, and we'll just give that 5 minutes to dry up, and we'll be able to do the one on the other side. Now while that's drying up, I'm going to place our ladder, a little bit of canopy glue, tiny dots in a few spots. Basically, as you can see, I've just put the little dots of glue on, and then very carefully I'll line it up with the edge of that concrete like so, between the window, pat it into place. So the glue is now dry enough that we can put the retractable ladder on this landing. This is our little retractable ladder, and it simply slides up inside there like so, and is glued on like that. Now we have a fire escape on a 2-story building. Okay, so that's now dry enough that I can start to put the half panel fire escape on and sit it there like so. So same as the other, we'll just get a few little dobs of glue in the corners. On 3 and above story buildings, add the landings to each of the stories first. Then add the ladder going from the top landing to the roof. Add the ladders that go between each of the stories, and finally add the ladder at the base. Now of course the process is the same, regardless of whether you're fitting a full panel fire escape or a half panel fire escape. Now don't these look just great? The detail is absolutely fantastic. I'm very happy with the way they turned out. But I'm not stopping just here, but in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be shooting another video finishing this diorama off, adding the weathering, etc. Plus I'm going to be adding some new parts that you may not yet have seen. Here we have a ducting for some air conditioning. There is also an air conditioning plant that will go on the roof, and some other vents and bits and pieces. So stay tuned for that. I think you'll find that'll be an interesting little video as well. I'm Chris the Modeler at ABR Modelworks. Thanks for watching this video and have a great day modelling. Oh, and by the way, check out these videos and don't forget to subscribe.